The first player taken in franchise history, Tony Boselli did not disappoint. Through his illustrious career with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tony was a regular All-Pro and dominated the tackle position and helped his team to 2 AFC Championship games. Last month, he received some sweet news from HOF legend Anthony Muñoz. I think I'll let him tell his story right now here on Great Dane Nation. Tony, man, welcome to the show. And yeah, I was there, but I wasn't there. You know, you found out at your house. Take me through that experience. First of all, welcome to the Hall of Fame. Welcome to the Brotherhood. So proud to have you. Way overdue. So deserving. And I know it's been a ride for you, but what great news. And tell me about that first experience with that legend, Anthony Muñoz.
Yeah, it was, Morten, you know, it's crazy. I mean, you waited around a long time too. So you kind of go through the process and, you know, before the pandemic, it was, you know, they bring everyone to the Super Bowl and you got a phone call or a knock on the door. The phone call was the dreaded phone call saying you didn't make it. Man. And,
Terrible.
I always wanted that knock on the door. Well, you know, the last couple of years with the pandemic and, you know, they've done it a little bit different and they did it really different this year. With Jim Porter being the new president of the Hall of Fame, had Hall of Famers let the people know who made it. And so, you know, they voted, I think like January 18th this year, and I didn't know anything, but the Hall of Fame actually called my wife to set this whole thing up to surprise me. And, you know, because I travel a lot with work and kind of figure out where I was going to be. So on the 27th, they tricked me to go to a buddy's house for a quote unquote business meeting. And so I show up and I get there and there's a knock on the door and I go down and he goes, "Hey, go grab the door for me. It's the other person we're waiting to meet." And I said, "Okay." So I go down there and I open up the door and it's Anthony Muñoz in his gold jacket with the NFL Network behind, and then my whole family, kids, wife, in-laws, parents. Well, my dad wasn't there. He passed away last year, but my mom and stepmom were there. And it was unreal because, I mean, no matter how you find out you're in the Hall of Fame, it's awesome. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, you could have.
You're right. There's no downside on this.
No, you could have the mailman come knock on the door and tell you, and you'd be like, yes. But to have Anthony Muñoz, you know, one, we both went to USC. Two, we played the same position. He set the standard, in my opinion. He is the standard bearer of playing left tackle. And I developed a relationship with him over the years when I was playing, post-career. And you know Anthony's one of the nicest human beings. As great of a player that he was, he's a better man. I mean, that's who he is. And so when I opened that door and saw him, all this emotion, I was flooded with emotion. And he gave me a big old Anthony Muñoz hug and said, "Welcome to the team. We're teammates forever now." And you spoke of that, you know, welcome to the brotherhood. And that's really what it is. You know, we all play sports growing up. We're part of teams. We're in the NFL, and the locker room was one of my favorite things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but when reality hits you that you're in the Hall of Fame, now all of a sudden that's forever, and you're a part of the greatest players who ever played the game, and it's just and as you know, you can't even put it into words because of how cool it is and what it means to be in the Hall of Fame.
Tony, I call it the eternal mic drop. I think what the Hall does, the gold jacket and the three symbols, of course, the ring, the bust in Canton that lasts for 40,000 years, and then that gold jacket, what it symbolizes, besides that you were an elite player, what it stands for is also the great equalization. You don't hear Hall of Fame brothers anymore talk about, like I remember being, you know, at the Merlin Olsen luncheon and being around all the gold jackets. Nobody talks about who was better than the other. Oh, there might be a few, but it's basically there might be a few. Okay. But in general, it's like this great equalizer. You know, whether you're a kicker or an offensive tackle or running back or a DB or a special team. Well, we don't have any, you know, special teamers yet like that return guys, but it just seems like everybody understands you belong, you're in the club, and there's no need to say anything else. I think you'll find that. I think you're going to, as you go, you'll find that you no longer have to explain and defend yourself against the critics, if you will. It's the eternal, like, mic drop. That's the best way I can say it.
And I remember, and I've heard people say this before. I think even you've said it in the past. Whether you get in the first time, your first ballot, or it took me 6 years. I think it took you 7 or 5 or something like that.
5, yeah. I was a finalist for 4 years.
Yeah.
I think you were a finalist for what, 6?
6 years.
Yeah.
And but it doesn't matter.
No.
Like people say, I don't care. Like the previous 5 years of disappointment are erased in a moment.
I know it's really an amazing thing. And you said that your emotions flooded over you, Tony. So help our listeners understand, like, what was the first thing you thought of? Was it gratitude? Was it, wow, reflection? Or was it just pure joy?
It was pure joy with gratitude. And then there was a hint after that hit me of like, oh, good, this is over. I don't have to do this anymore.
Great, like,
woo. But I think the overwhelming, it was joy, obviously. It just, every time I think about it, I get happy.
Yeah.
But the prevailing, like, emotion would be gratitude. Like, just super thankful. Like, because I don't know about you more, but it's forced me, like, to look back and the journey and how I got here. And for me, what the highlights along the journey are the people that God put in my path, that God gave me. Because I don't think any of us get here by ourselves. It's just, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I look at, I have great parents. My dad, the only bittersweet thing was my dad couldn't be here because he passed away in May.
Condolences.
21. And so that, that's hard, but, thankful for him. My parents were supportive. I had great coaches. I mean, the coaches I had were amazing. I mean, I went to USC and never had pass blocked one day in my life, and that's what I became known as a great pass blocker. Yeah. And it's not because I figured it out myself. I had great coaches. And so that's the biggest, I think, the number one emotion is just gratitude.
What would you say to your dad? I don't want to get too emotional here, but what would you say to your dad today? He's standing next to you and, man, you're in the Hall of Fame. What would you say to him?
Well, I'm going to tell you a story because it was interesting. So my wife and one of my best friends, a guy named Eric Murphy, my dad had cancer last year. And I knew last year when I found out I wasn't in, that there was a good chance he wasn't going to be there for it. Mm-hmm. And 12 days before he died, my wife and my good friend Eric Murphy had the idea of they're going to go video him. And they told him, saying, hey, we're collecting videos for Tony because we think he's going to make the Hall of Fame next year. We want you to be on it. And he didn't want to do it because my dad was stubborn. And he's like, I'm not dying. Like, he refused to ever to the end, he was not going to give in. And they convinced him to do it. And so they made this video. And so now fast forward, I make the Hall of Fame, and Thursday night after the honors, we have a party at USC, and the Jags hosted it. My wife hosted it and had ex-teammates and all these people and coaches. And they started playing a video at the end. And this video comes up, and it's, friends and family and teammates, like, congratulating, but also giving me a hard time, which I love. It's like the locker room, like making fun.
Yeah, sure.
And then Morten, all of a sudden, my dad pops up on the screen. And I had no idea. I didn't know they had done this. And I honestly, I'm getting the chills and getting emotional thinking about it. I couldn't even watch. All I remember him saying is how proud he was of me. And I still got to go watch the whole video because I just couldn't do it. Mm. And I think what I tell my dad, just thanks. Thanks for being there. Thanks for, I've told this story a couple of times now. My dad lied for me when I was 8 years old because I wanted to play football so bad, padded football, like with full pads. And I put Boulder, Colorado, and you had to be 9 years old to play in the rec league. So we go down there. I'm big, obviously, and my dad and I we're walking in, and They said, how old is he? He made up a birth date or whatever and said he's 9 years old. And I started playing football. And it's like he came to every game. He was, I remember when I really felt like I had a chance to be good in high school, and he did too. He hired a trainer for me. We didn't have the money to afford that. He couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
He got me, he ended up being super successful later in life. But, at that time, it was like he was giving me something and was taken away from someone else. And so just like super thankful. Like he was and I think every son, like to hear your dad say they're proud. I mean, what else do you need?
Yeah, that's powerful.
And so that was a special moment. And my wife we've been married 27 years. For her to think of that, and my good friend, and to go through the effort of putting that together for me, just meant the world.
Well, it's just going to continue for a while now, Tony. Just be ready. Be ready for the waterfalls. We usually take bets on stage when the guys do the acceptance speech. Who's the first crier? There's money being exchanged. In case you didn't know this, I'm just giving you a heads up.
I wouldn't put money. Don't put money on me, Morten, because as my kids and wife will tell you, like I will, like. My daughter's like, Dad, we've never seen you cry. Because what I do is I just avoid the emotion. Like I got some unhealthy like lockbox. I just put everything in there.
Wow. How do you do that? I cry. You know what? I cry at soap operas. This is pitiful.
It's some dysfunction I have in my life.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why you were so successful, because you could check the emotion at the door and just be workmanlike. And was that like your dad as well? Was he not an emotional guy?
He was emotional.
He was emotional.
I think the last time I can remember like really crying was when he died, and I had to give his eulogy at his funeral.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So maybe the Hall of Fame is the next time.
All right. Well, you're saying don't put money on.
I wouldn't put money.
I know it's staying in my pocket. I'm not going.
And if you do put money on me, let me know so I can I'll work on the fake cry.
Well, you know what? We have Dick Vermeil. We ought to be in good shape.
Oh yeah, put money on him. That's where I'm putting my money.
I love Coach.
Oh, he's the best.
Played for him for a couple of years. So I mean,
He's a crier, though.
I'm gonna lean in that direction for right now. I think the over under on him's better odds. Whatever, you get better odds for him. Hey, was there ever a time? And we'll move on from the Hall of Fame. I want to talk to you about Jacksonville, of course. Was there ever a time when you were thinking, man, I don't know if this is going to happen? Because for me, there was a period of time, if I don't get in this year, and I was looking at future years and going, look at all these first ballots. Yeah. Look at all these guys waiting at the door. Was there ever a time when you were like?
Probably almost every year except for the first year as a finalist. When I didn't make it the first year as a finalist, I was like, okay. But I remember someone telling me after that first year, it's like, well, you made top 10. Like it was actually the year you made it was the first year as a finalist in 2017. And I was top 10, and they said, everyone was real positive. So I'm like, okay, I'll make it next year.
Oh yeah. If a kicker can make it, hell, I'm in.
And I said, and then I didn't make it the next year. And then you start thinking, I'm like, ooh. And you start, maybe I won't ever make it. And then I actually told my wife, because not only was I a finalist for 6 straight years, I was top 10 in each of those. So I was like going down to the finals. And I remember telling my wife, I said, if I don't make it this year, I don't think I'll ever make it.
Wow.
This was the year when I was like, and I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just the feeling I had. And I'm glad I'm just glad I never have to think about that again. Like ever.
You don't. Yeah, it's over.
That's the cool part.
We can check that box now, move on.
That's right.
Freely. Yeah. Yep. Move around the country freely. With a gold jacket in hand, by the way.
Yeah. And a big ring.
And a big old ring, man. I'm telling you. So you're the first Jacksonville Jaguar to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which is awesome. Who's the next guy to join you? Is it Jimmy Smith, Fred Taylor, Tom Coughlin, Calais Campbell, Jalen Ramsey? Where are you? Have you thought of that at all?
I haven't thought too much about it, but there's Tom Coughlin should be in the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
I mean, what he did, the most success that expansion teams ever had was under him. He won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants as the head coach. I mean, he is one of the great coaches who ever. And I thought it was interesting. Dick Vermeil said he thinks we were talking about Tom. He says, I think he's one of the 2 greatest coaches I've ever been around. Mm-hmm. And so Tom Coughlin should be in the Hall of Fame. And he should someone should make the case for him. If I look at players, I think probably one of the most underrated players I've ever been around was Fred Taylor.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a guy who had over 12,000 yards. I think he averaged 4.6 yards a carry, which is like top 5 or top 3 ever in the history of the NFL. He was, you ask anyone who played against him, he was as dynamic as any guy who ever touched the ball. They say, well, he didn't make a bunch of Pro Bowls or all pros. Well, go ask guys who played against him. Go turn on the tape. Go look at his stats. The guys I just believe Fred Taylor deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. You talk about Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith was a dominant player. I think, I think if you're asking me, I always, when we lined up in Jacksonville and we had Fred Taylor in the backfield and Jimmy Smith outside, you couldn't win with us because if you put 7 in the box, we were going to run the ball. If you dropped the extra guy in the box, the 8th guy, and played man outside, we were throwing it to Jimmy.
Goodbye.
And just go ask the Hall of Fame corners who played against Jimmy and ask them how that day went. And so now he doesn't have the big numbers around touchdowns because of the offense we played in and the era that we played in. He just didn't have the touchdown catches. And so it's probably going to be held against him. But I think both those guys are just top notch. And Fred Taylor's been a semifinalist the last 2 years. Hopefully he can get into the finals this coming year. And I think it would be a great debate about Fred Taylor and the type of player he was.
So I'm just going to say this, 1996, you're welcome.
Will
you fill our listeners in, please?
Well, we're playing the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons, we're on a winning streak, and all we have to do is win the football game to go to the playoffs. And the Falcons, you guys are terrible that year.
We were 2-13 coming to Jacksonville on the last game of the season.
Dumpster fire. I mean, terrible. And we play terrible, and it's back and forth. And we have a 1 or 2 point lead. You guys get the ball, and I think it's Chris Chandler's playing quarterback, and just systematically
might have been Jeff George, actually.
Or was it Jeff George?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. Dinking and dunking down the field, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, we're going to blow this. And everyone knows we got the great Morten Andersen as the kicker. Like, this guy, never –
30-yard field goal, dude.
It was like 32 or 30.
30-yard field goal right from the middle.
This guy never misses. Ever. And so I remember we line up and I'm sitting on the sidelines and I'm getting ready to go in and pack my stuff up and go on vacation. I'm like, we're done. And we get a good rush. I swear someone tipped that ball.
Yes. Thank you for saying that because in all the years following that kick in that year, people say, oh, he slipped and shanked it. Well, I did slip, but you got to push. And I have seen footage of somebody altering the ball flight.
Yep.
Because it was going like left center.
Yeah.
And then there's a tip, and then boom, it goes way left. And I'm laying on the ground, and so I don't know if you don't know this story, but I ran into Robbie Tobek in the airport the other day. Robbie Tobek was a lineman with us, and I'm laying on my ass on the ground, and he straddles me after the miss. I'm thinking, what a nice teammate. He's going to help me up. You lost the freaking game. He does that, and then he steps over me and leaves me laying there in the ground. And that's not funny, Tony. That's not funny.
It is funny because, Morten, and I know you probably realize this, but what that did, forget about what it did for the Jaguars. We got into the playoffs.
I know.
What it did for me is I got to go play against Bruce Smith the next week. And Bruce Smith was the MVP, defensive MVP in the NFL that year. He was the best defensive player. He was Aaron Donald.
Yes.
And I remember you miss the kick or it gets blocked or tipped or whatever happened.
It doesn't matter. It's missed.
Yeah, it's missed. And so I walk into the locker room. We're all excited. We're all high-fiving each other. And then I get in and I find out, and they said, we're going to Buffalo. We're playing Buffalo next week. I'm like, oh, no.
That's Bruce Smith.
I got to play Bruce Smith. But what it did is that was the game that kind of put me on the map because I went and I blocked Bruce Smith.
You got 3 tackles against you.
And nobody blocked Bruce Smith that year. and not very many people blocked him when he was in his prime. And he was in his prime then, and I had a good game. And Bruce Smith is, come on. As I joke around, Bruce Smith is in the Hall of Fame of Hall of Fames because he's the 100-year team. He is the greatest of all times. And I had a really good game against them. And from that moment on, how I was viewed changed. And I ended up having several good years after that, all pro and everything else.
Yes,
but that was a big moment for me personally. So I thank you for slipping, for the ball going off target.
Like I said, you're welcome.
And you know what? And it worked out for both of us. You're in the Hall of Fame. I'm in the Hall of Fame. So what does it matter?
Well, so I'll make 2 points. I did turn lemons into lemonade because I was invited by the Jags. They had what's called the Jaspers.
Yeah, the awards. Yep.
Right. In the summer, they invited me down to be a surprise presenter to Mark Brunell, who was Sportsman of the Year. Remember that? Remember this?
Yes.
And I walked out in front of like 2,000 people, all black tie, and I slipped and kind of pretended to fall on stage. And I think they gave me a standing ovation.
They did.
You know what? I've had a lot of free golf in Jacksonville.
Oh,
over the years.
Anytime you come down, Morten, you don't bring your wallet. Everything will be taken care of down here for you.
You know what? And then I want to put a bow on Bruce Smith because I think it must have been pretty cool when you walked on stage at the NFL Honors Show and Bruce Smith was the guy introducing you. Do you think that was something the NFL had figured out?
They had to, because I had no idea. So like most guys, everyone else has someone else who had played for that organization and was in the Hall of Fame. So, yep. You had Brett Favre doing Leroy Butler and, whatever.
Yes. Sure.
And so I was like, I wonder who they're going to have introduce me. And I'm last.
That was cool.
And it was all of a sudden I hear this voice and I'm like, wait a second. Is that Bruce Smith? And I come out and I see Bruce Smith and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is
awesome.
Unreal. And then the best was because when Bruce and I played, because we played against each other several times after that as well, there was no love there. We respected each other, but he was not happy with me. And I was trying to kill him, to be fair.
Sure.
And so it's not like I had a great relationship with Bruce or anything. And one of the coolest things, that goes back to your point of the brotherhood, once you're in.
Yeah.
He did that, which meant the world to me. And number two, then he came up and gave me the biggest hug and just said, hey, welcome to the team.
Awesome.
And I just said, that is so damn cool. That is just so cool.
It's the way it's supposed to roll, And listen, it's been a love fest until now. I'm gonna get a little more, little more. I'm hoping you'll share some stuff. You cover the Jaguars on radio, and you've been in broadcasting. You've done a great job. You've done the Fox regional. You've done a lot of different things. So I know that you know the Jags, and I know that this whole Urban Meyer's thing did not pan out, did not work, this experiment. And so I want to get your take on Urban Meyer. I want to get your take on why it didn't work out and where the franchise is headed. Yeah, as a starter, and you can be as raw as you want to be. I know you got to be.
I'll shoot you straight.
Let's have it.
It was as dysfunctional situation as you can imagine. I never thought it was a good hire. I even when they hired him. Not that. Listen, Urban Meyer's had a ton of success, and great.
Why? Why do you say that right up front?
Because you hear too much about a person's character sometimes. And I worried about, so that's secondhand, so you never want to take it as gospel. But then I just look at history. And there's not a lot of guys who've had success who've never coached, who come from college and have never had any pro experience.
Yeah.
And then I look at what made him successful in college. He obviously was a good leader, but leading college kids and grown men are two different things. He's a great recruiter. Who cares? That doesn't mean anything in the NFL. He's not an X and O guy. He never has been. He's never been a coordinator. He's not an X and O guy. And so I worried, would it translate from what he did in college to the NFL? My hope was I wouldn't have hired him, but when they did hire him, my hope was, okay, I hope he's a smart enough man to take those great leadership skills he had in college and make sure he evolves and changes enough to take that same leadership gift and apply it in the NFL and then build a great staff of X's and O's around him. He did not do that. It was all about him. He created division in the building. And then, he preached about family and accountability and, all this stuff. And then he ends up not getting on the plane, and you saw where his hand was with someone who wasn't his wife. Now, that's his business, but you don't get to do it both ways. And Morten, you've been in locker rooms enough. That guy standing up in front of you as a player, you know right away whether he's full of shit or not.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I had Bobby Petrino as a head coach, so I know plenty.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I think he just lost all credibility in the building. It started creating division, and then he did that, and the players and the way he managed some of the players was just terrible. He was very off-putting, and I give Shad Khan credit, the owner, because Shad was so excited about hiring him. His quote was, "I got it right this time." And he was and for him to swallow his pride and have the humility of saying, "I got it wrong, get rid of him now." And I love that they fired him with cause too. So saying, "We're not going to pay you."
Yeah, that was cause.
Yes, there was cause.
Well, plenty.
Yes, plenty of cause. So it was a disaster. So where do they go from here? I still think they got to look at the culture of the building. They got Trent Baalke in there as the GM, who has a history of creating, some division, but he's also at the same time had success at picking players. You can't argue with the fact that he took the 49ers to 3 straight NFC championships as the GM and won Super Bowl. But if you talk to people around the league, there's always drama that's going on. So that's something I worry about. But I think Shad did get it right with Doug Pederson. He's a guy who, former player under Andy Reid, won the Super Bowl in Philly. He's a football guy. I've never heard anything but positive things about Doug Pederson. So maybe the combination of Doug and Trent working together, they can fix the culture, because I'm a big believer. Let me say it this way. There's a reason the same teams pick in the top 10 every damn year. Mm-hmm. Because the NFL is set up that you're supposed to get the better players the worse you are. But why do the same teams keep on ending up there? I mean, this is back-to-back years. The Jags are have the number 1 overall pick. They've picked in the top 10 9 out of the last 10 years, or 10 out of 11 years, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I believe culture is a big thing. I think leadership in the building and how you go about your business and how people are treated, and are people excited about being there? Are you developing people? Are you giving people the ability to use their talents? Does everyone know their role, or is everyone worried about what everyone else is doing? I think culture is huge. And I've job this. Like, you can get all the high picks you want. If you don't fix the culture, nothing's going to change. So I hope they get it right. I think Doug's a big part of it. I just hope they can fix the culture in that building.
So when you look to leadership, you usually look to your quarterback, and like, as you just mentioned, the Jags picked first last year, and they picked Trevor Lawrence, out of Clemson. Had nothing but success, didn't know how to lose, never tasted losing at Clemson, basically. And here he comes to Jacksonville, and I can't think of a worse guy to tutor him than Urban Meyer. What a terrible, terrible predicament that put Trevor in, because he's clearly talented. But your thoughts on Trevor? I look at Cincinnati, and I look at their second-year guy, and they go all the way, and they seem to have the right pieces. They seem to have the right flow there, the right leadership, the right culture.
Yep.
And if I'm Jacksonville, I'm taking a hard look at Cincinnati and what they're doing.
No, I think that's right. And, first on Trevor, what he was put through and what he had to endure was ridiculous. And he didn't put up great numbers, but I don't know if he could have. I'm a big Trevor Lawrence fan. And not just because what he did in college. And people already go, well, you like what he did his rookie year? His numbers were terrible. I loved what he did, because he showed the ability to have the maturity and the mental toughness to endure a complete mess of a head coach. In Morten, he ended up becoming the leader as the rookie of not just the offense, but the organization, the voice. And he hung in there, and he handled it like a pro. he'll figure out the physical stuff. Like, he's got that natural talent. He is tough as crap. He hangs in the pocket. Guys love him. I thought what he went through was very difficult, unfair to him. Not how you want to start it. But I think if you get the right coaches and players around him, and I think Doug Pederson is that, they got a lot of work to do on the offensive side of the football as far as player procurement. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a superstar.
You think so? We're looking at a guy that can one day be the elite quarterback category right there.
I do believe that.
Okay.
I'm also biased because I'm a Jags fan.
All right, fair enough.
So
I get it.
Yeah.
Jags have the first pick in the draft for the second straight year. Who should they pick and why?
I think they got to it's not a great draft. There's not that one guy, is there, that you just say, oh, that is the best player. I mean, you got that Aidan Hutchinson from Michigan. You got the other defensive end from Oregon. I'd probably lean towards Hutchinson from Michigan if I wanted to go defense. But I do think the Jags got to rebuild the offensive line. They got to protect Trevor.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would, in a perfect world, if I was Trent and Doug, I would try to trade down, get some picks, and try to get a wide receiver because they need speed. But if you can't and you're stuck at number one, I think you got to pick one of the big offensive tackles is where I'd go with it, because you got to get better. Now that could all change if they make a trade during free agent, before the draft, or they spend a bunch of money on the offensive line in free agency. And if you do that, then you go with Aidan Hutchinson. But I think right now I'd lean towards the offensive line.
Yeah, and I think Cincinnati, as I was talking about, same thing. They got to get line, right? They need line.
I don't think they could block you and I. I think if you and I were rushing.
Boy, that right, I felt bad for that right guard, man.
I think we would have got a couple sacks.
I don't know about me. I'm going with a swim move. Are you a rip guy or a swim guy or a spin guy?
I think right now I just got a bull rush. I don't have much movement left in me, so it's just straight downhill.
No. I want to talk to you about your shoulder. Before I do that, since we're talking about greatest moves, as an offensive lineman, when you lined up, okay, Bruce Smith, we knew what he was. What was the move that you feared the most? Not that you feared anything, but because it seemed like you pancaked every single guy coming at you. I saw a lot of video of you pancaking people, by the way. So was that your nickname, maybe? A little pancake?
Yeah, exactly. The hardest move for me was there wasn't any one move. It's when a guy had two moves. So, like, I'll put it this way: if he has good power and speed, because you can't. It's like I always viewed it as like if you look at baseball, like I don't care how hard you can throw the ball. You can throw it 100 miles an hour. At some point, the great hitters are going to time you up and hit you. But if you can throw 100 miles an hour and then you have a changeup that looks the same but coming at 85, you're in trouble. So I always thought the best players, the toughest guys.
John Randall and Kevin Green comes to mind.
John Randall. Worst game I ever had as a pro was John Randall.
It comes to mind.
And because he had speed, he had power, he had quickness with a little spin move. Like he was a I used to say he was an all-day sucker. One of those like lollipops you have. It's just there no matter what you do. Like no matter nothing changes. No matter what I did to John, he kept on coming. And I think so. It was never any one move. It was the guy who had the ability to give you different stuff. Because I don't care how good you were at one move, I could stop you. But if you had a counter,
beautiful
kept me on my heels, it's like, we got some work to do today.
But the end was clear to you when your shoulder started giving out, and you had you were drafted in the supplemental draft down in Houston, and that just didn't happen. You said it's documented that you said you had some unsuccessful shoulder. What happened with the shoulder? How did they screw that up? I mean, a shoulder surgery ought to be. Or are we in legal territory now?
Well, yeah, I try not to go into too much specifics here. I'll just say this: my shoulder. I played with my shoulder not hurting me for a year, and it was my choice. The Jaguars never pressured me. Like I wanted to be on the field, and I had a Pro Bowl year. I mean, I played well. I tried to come back the next year, and I played 3 games, and it was popping out of joint every.
Ugh.
And And so
what's that like?
I found out when it wouldn't go all the way out, kind of sublux come in and out. And so I got an MRI. They said I had torn labrum. I didn't think much of it. Scope, how big a deal can it be? Get it fixed, go in. The reality was there was more damage in the shoulder than just that. The surgery I had was not optimal. I don't think they did a great job. Their rehab schedule afterwards was not optimal. Mm-hmm. And it led to significant arthritis and other issues.
Scar tissue.
Yep. And I tried to have 2 more surgeries to clean it up. And no matter what they did, in the end, they said, there's nothing we can do. And so I tried to play with it like that in Houston one year. And it would be, I couldn't lift my arm above my waist, my left arm.
Yeah, it's unavoidable then.
It was just over. There was nothing.
You had no chance. It was clear.
It was done. I tried everything. I mean, and the docs at Houston and the trainers at Houston did everything they could. They were great. I chose the wrong doctor. I mean, if he was what I mean, and I actually I have nothing against the doctor. Nothing. I mean, it just didn't work. It didn't.
That's why they call it practicing medicine.
Yeah, it didn't work, and it's not like anyone tried to make it happen.
Right.
No one did anything malicious.
Yeah.
It was just surgery. Like I always said, I think I could have played another couple years, never getting surgery. It just sucked it up. And but the surgery, I thought now it would have been miserable, but the surgery was supposed to fix it and give me hopefully another 5 years or so, and it ended my career.
Yeah, and had it worked out, you would have stayed with the Texans long term, or would you try to go somewhere else? Do you think?
I didn't care. I just wanted to play football. I mean,
sure.
I was like, I'll play wherever you want me to play. I just like to play. If you're going to pay me to play this game, I'm in. I mean, in ideal state, I would have loved to stay at Jackson my whole career, but we were in such bad salary cap, and I had always worked with the team, and I'd always they would push out my money and give me big signing bonuses at the beginning of the year so they could free up cap space. Well, it got to the point where I had my cap number was so big, they no longer could push it out. There was nothing.
Right.
And so I think that coupled with my shoulder not being great, they said, hey, it's time to move on.
So I'm a big proponent of the internationalization of the game. I think the NFL, I'd love to see a team in London. In the UK, I know the Jags have spent a lot of time every year. They just won their first game over there in London, or in Tottenham, I guess, in their new stadium, right? That is multifaceted. It's soccer and it's American football. What do people around the team think about the annual London game? Because you lose a home game, right? And you lose your home field and you lose all of that. I mean, I know that your owner has connection with England and so forth. Do you see the Jacksonville Jaguars being the London Jaguars? Yeah,
I don't think they'll ever move there. First of all, the owner just invested another $100 million. They're building a brand new practice facility in Jacksonville. He's getting ready. They want to build a new stadium. He's building the Four Seasons on the river across
okay.
Yeah, he's investing there. Now, with that said, I think we'll play in London every year as long as he's owner. And they just announced we're going to be back in London this year, but this time back at Wembley. That's where the owner likes to play. He'd rather play in Wembley.
Yeah.
And so we'll be there. I think it's great for the game too. Morten, I agree with you. The game in London's great. We're playing in Germany this year, in Mexico.
Yeah, Munich, I think.
Yeah. For the game to really grow, though, internationally, and for us to have teams in those areas full time, you have to have the international players getting.
Yes.
Because there's only so many great football players. You don't want to water it down by adding more teams.
No.
In Europe. No. And so, my hope is, and I've been over to some camps in the UK. And I'm a big proponent of spreading the game. I'd love to see more and more international players, kids growing up playing the game. I've been over there. Great athlete. Obviously, there's great athletes in Europe. They play every other dang sport. Why couldn't they play football? The best soccer teams are over there. So why wouldn't they be over here?
Right.
I think Germany is probably has the biggest head start because there's a lot of organized American football over there. So I'm glad we're going to Munich this year. I think that's a big opportunity.
Yes.
So I'd love to figure out, and I hope the NFL continues to figure out how to expand the game, because it's a game I love. I know you love it too.
Yes.
And it's good for the league. It's good for the game. We need more. And I'm biased again. I just think it's the best game to teach people about life too. The principles that are taught in this game are amazing.
So many parallels.
Yep.
So many parallels between the two.
Yep.
Of lessons and takeaways that you can use. And,
That's right.
And are very easily explainable to kids.
That's exactly right. So I'm looking forward to moving back in London this year with the Jags. It's great. I'm glad the NFL is being aggressive. We'll see where it goes. I think we'll probably – my guess is it's 10 years away before they're ready to actually put a team overseas.
Wow, that long?
I think so. I mean, you just have so many logistics to figure out, the travel.
You would play East Coast teams, wouldn't? And you would stay over there.
I would
3 games home and away kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. Is there any competitive disadvantage? I think the regular season's pretty easy to figure out. But how do you do the playoffs? Could you imagine if you're a team in London and you got to go play the 49ers?
Well, I mean, you
in the fall,
you're gonna get on the horse, man, and fly 20 hours. I don't know. You're right, man. That's a brutal one.
Yeah.
Maybe by then we have supersonic flight. It takes 2 hours.
That's right. I mean, technology. I mean, Elon Musk?
Let's go, man. SpaceX, boom.
Figure it out, Elon.
Fire 7 rockets from London to San Fran, and we'll land there and right in the stadium. Yeah.
Right.
So Anthony Muñoz and you, both USC guys. I'll just one question quickly about USC. Are you how excited are you for the Lincoln Riley era?
I'm excited. So I'm going to give a plug to USC. Everyone talks about USC being tailback U. It is tackle U. Give me 4 Hall of Famers: Ron Yeri, Ron Mix, Anthony Muñoz, Tony Boselli, and the 5th one who wasn't a tackle but played every position, Bruce Matthews.
Right.
I mean, Bruce Matthews played center, guard, and tackle, so I never know where to put.
He was an offensive lineman.
He was an offensive lineman, and probably the best athlete of all of us. I mean, what he could do. USC's offensive line U. I mean, you talk about great offensive linemen. So with that, I'm excited about Lincoln Riley. They need to rebuild the big guys. He is going to get skilled positions. He's a great offensive mind. You look what he did in Oklahoma. I just hope they get back to playing some physical football. And I think you got to build the offensive and defensive lines. Looking at the recruiting, it looks like that's what he's doing. So I'm really excited about this new era at USC.
Hey, real quick here, last little name game for you, Tony. We've talked about some of these guys, so I'll skip them. But these are guys you played with and that you know well. A word or a paraphrase when I say them. What comes to mind? Mark Brunell.
He's my best friend.
Okay.
Just a great teammate, great friend, and probably if he had played in this era, would even have been a greater player than he was, because he back when he played, he liked to run around, extend the play, and use his legs, and he was always criticized for doing that, and they told him to stay in the pocket more. In today's NFL, he would even be more dangerous.
Yeah, I remember him, man. He could sling the rock, and he had Fred Taylor in the backfield, Jimmy Smith, like we talked about, and of course, Tom Coughlin on the sideline there. Let's talk about Carnell Lake.
Carnell Lake came the last 2 years of his career, came from Pittsburgh. I competed against Carnell Lake a bunch when the Jags would play the Steelers. What a great teammate. Always made me laugh. I mean, he was a pain in the butt to play against when he was with the Steelers. But the year he was a Pro Bowler with us, we had the #1 defense in the NFL, and he's a big reason for it.
Keenan McCardell. I don't know if I'm saying the name right.
Yeah, Keenan McCardell, toughest football player I've ever played with.
Wow.
And most people say, wait a second, he played wide receiver. Toughest football player I ever played with. He loved football. He loved to practice it. He loved to play it. Two stories that come to mind. We're playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he gets a grade 3 AC joint sprain in the game. Misses. It's in the third quarter. Misses the game. His bones like popping up, everything else. And trainer, says you're out 2 to 4 weeks. Or maybe it was 4 to 6 weeks. It was a bad one. Keenan says, I'm not missing any games. Cut a special hole in his pad so the bone could stick up. Played that week, the next week. Fast forward 2 years, we're playing. We're in the playoffs. We're playing the New England Patriots at home. We beat them. He breaks his wrist in the game. We got to go to the Jets the next week, and we're playing the New York Jets. He's out. He says, "No, I'm not." Put a cast on and had 8 catches against the New York Jets in the playoffs with a broken wrist.
Good grief. Yeah.
The dude he's a coach right now for the Minnesota Vikings. I have the utmost respect for Keenan McCardell, one of my favorite teammates, toughest football player I've ever been around.
Wow. You had a young quality control coach on the staff in 2000 named Lane Kiffin.
I've known Lane a long time. He is a friend. He was I knew
Why are we laughing?
I knew Lane back when he was getting coffee for Tom Coughlin. We'd be making fun of him every day, all day. Great offensive mind, crazy as heck, but a really, really good football coach.
Crazy how?
He's always. I mean, I knew him back when he was younger, so like crazy, not in a bad crazy. He's just always saying something, doing something. Making a smart remark. I mean, it's just, but a great dude. Fun to be around.
Leon Searcy.
Best punch I've ever seen out of an offensive lineman. Ooh. He would, if he hit you with the punch, you were going to feel it, and your chest was going to hurt. I remember when he first got there, came from the Steelers in '96, and we were practicing and we were working against each other, and like I learned really quick, I'm not pairing up with Leon to do the punch drills because it just like he's going to punish you. And he was so physical, and he was obviously a friend too. But he made me better because we were always competing. I was left tackle, he's right tackle. Like who was going to be better? And I liked that. He pushed me, but the best punch I've ever seen.
All right, let's close it out with a listener question from Emerson on Twitter, Tony. Lifelong Jags fan here. Where does that crushing hit on Ray Buchanan in the 1998 Pro Bowl rank among your greatest achievements?
It doesn't even make the list. It's the Pro Bowl.
What can I say, man? It's coming straight from Twitter, bro.
I remember. The funny thing is, I remember I saw it on Twitter, so I remember. And I hit Ray, and I remember him looking up at me. He's like, "Man, ease up. What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just like, what are you supposed to do? We're playing football."
Want to win the game, man. More cash.
More cash. Well, back then, remember, Morten, that cash meant something to us. We weren't making the money they're making now.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I had this conversation with Steve Tasker. Painful because he blocked one of my kicks. You're not supposed to rush in the Pro Bowl. He blocked a kick, cost our team $250,000. I took so much grief. He took it off my foot. It hit him in the armpit. I had no chance.
Well, I'll tell you,
I'm not bitter.
My locker was right next to our kicker, Mike Hollis, when I was a player, and I always remember looking at Mike and all the kickers. I'm like, that is the last job in the world that I would want. Because first of all, no one wants to give you pay any attention to you at all, and you go out in the beginning. You're expected to make every extra point. It's just
you better.
It's a gimme, and then you kick field goals, and if you make them, everyone's like, okay, great. If you miss them, they want to kill you. But then the whole game goes on for 59 minutes and 59 seconds. And all of a sudden, you got to roll out there after sitting on the sidelines with all those big fat guys hitting each other and running around. And we're all looking at you like, don't screw it up.
And you have a 30-yarder. And if you miss it, the Jags are in the playoffs for the first time in franchise history.
God bless
and life
you.
will never be the same.
God bless
because Tony Boselli gets a chance to go against Bruce Smith in Buffalo. And he dominates up there and his career is off and running. Again, you're welcome, Tony. Listen, we've done it all. You've done it all, Tony. You've come to listen. You've landed in Canton, Ohio, brother.
Thank you.
Come on.
Yeah.
How special.
Thank you, sir.
And I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see you in August.
Oh, we're gonna have a good time.
I am looking forward to it. I hope you will invite my wife
invited.
and I.
You're already invited. You're invited.
Can't wait to see you bust. Are you happy with the progress? Have you started that yet?
No, they did the measurements, and my head's so big that I think they had to get.
I had to say, running out of clay. I have to import clay, man.
So I guess I got to go fly somewhere to sit down for the day or something like that.
Yeah, you're flying to Utah.
Yeah, Utah. Yeah. So
it's gonna be great. A good day. It's a good day.
I'm hoping they try to I'm like, can you fly me in March so I can go skiing, spring skiing?
I'm sure they'll do whatever you want. Why? Because you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I love it.
And you deserve it. And I can't wait to see you. Job well done, my friend. Thanks for coming on Great Dane Nation. I really appreciate you.
Anytime.
Let me know how I may love you, and let me know how I may help you.
Well, listen, next time you're in Florida, get your butt down here. We're going to go play golf on me.
Yes.
Let's go.
We'll go. I wasn't planning on paying. Trust me. In Jacksonville, it's one play I don't pay. I'll see you, buddy.
See you, man.